Now, this part is to actually start to construct the bag. We spent a long time cutting out all the pieces that we required. So here we go. So I've got there's 2 pieces of exterior fabric which has been attached to foam, and I'm going to call that one my front. Okay, so I'm using a friction pen, and I'm just going to write F on it. If it doesn't like walking on foam, but I've just written F on it, so I know that that's the front. Now, the next thing I want to do is to fold it in half, so I've got the centre line. All right, again with the friction pen. Now these iron off, so you know it's not going to affect the material. And then take my that's the top of my handle, which has been stitched. That's the back. I'm going to take what I call the top of my handle, and I am going to see what it looks like. Naturally, we don't want any curves or anything, and I'm just going to look at it now and say, not sure. How wide? What should I do? I want it to be a nice handle, and I've got to think about how deep I want it. I'm going to get my ruler a moment and just look at it and say, well, right, from the centre mark, that's about right on the one side. So I think that's, yeah, I think that's 2.5 inches, 2.5 there. So I'm going to get my pen and put a little dash. So that's 2.5 inches from the centre mark. Now, I'm doing it from the centre mark because you have to remember that all our bags are going to be different, aren't they? They're going to be different widths and so that's 5 for the other edge, so that makes it the same for me. Now, you may want to do it a little bit wider depending if you've got a much bigger bag than I'm using, okay? But that's going to suit me like that. I also need to find out how deep I need to go into the bag, so I'm gonna measure downwards and say, 1, 2, 1.5. No, 1 3/4 I think will do me. 1 3/4. So I'm just gonna mark either side. I'm still working it out in my head. But I think I'm going to, yeah. So I decided 1 3/4, and I made a couple of marks on there. And you can't quite see this, it's not quite in shot, but what I'm doing now is just doing a line that's covering that central position so that I know where my handles are going to lie next. I just, I don't need to do it right way across, just, the bit that we need. Okay, so let's move that back round. I hope you can see I've done that line. And then we'll put our handles back on. And down to that line, that inside mark on the inside of the handle, and I get the large pin and pinning that handle down. Okay, and then oops, didn't quite get that right. I a bit, me, I gotta get it right. On the 2 marks and pin it down nice and tight. Then I need another large pin. That little pin's not going to work for me. Bring it round, making sure there's no twist in the handle. And again, so that it lines up with that inside mark and down to the line. Okay. And then that's no good. Let's get another big pin. And plop that pin in. There we are. Now, that suits us for the moment. Now, having got that all lined up and lovely, and we know that it's equal distance on both edges, the next thing we need to do is to sew it down. Now, I'm going to be using what they call a bean stitch, which looks like it's got, if you look on your machine, it looks like it's got 3 dots and 3 lines and 1 line. It's a thickest stitch, which means it actually goes over it 3 times. If you don't, well, then you're going to have to use what you consider to be your most rigorous stitch, because after all, at the end of the day, this is going to hold the handles. Now, we don't want to sew right up to the top of the bag, we want to do a square with an X across, but we don't want to sew right up to the bag because the top of the bag still has lining and interface, lining and the zip. So we just want to do roughly about, well, we want to make sure there's at least ½ inch that is free. Yeah. So I might just take my ruler and make a line so that I don't overstep that part there. When I'm attaching the handles, I need a certain amount of freedom. So I'm just going to measure down ½ inch and roughly with my pen say, well, I don't want to go past there. This is only, a visual for me. I don't want to go past there so that I still got that freedom of movement to allow me to attach everything else. All right, so I am just picking up a bean stitch, all right, which is like 3 dash lines, and taking one of mine now underneath, making sure that I'm keeping it nice and horizontal, nice and squared up. Okay, and I'm going to do it slowly. When it comes to a bean stitch, it does overwrite itself quite a bit, so I need to be, quite slow with it. And I'm just stopping before that line that I drew. Right, and I am going to do the X across. And I think I'll double up on the top of the line. So I get to this corner, so I can then come diagonally back across to the bottom corner. And I'm going to do a lock off stitch. And cut my threads. So that's one handle firmly attached. Let me just show you the back of it. All right. So that's one handle firmly attached. So I'm going to go on and do, well, one side of a handle. So you can see I've still got this free space above it. I'm going to go and do the other one and do it on the other side that we've already made. I got a few things on the table at the moment. This is the two pieces with the handles attached now. Brilliant. And this one that I marked as F for front. I don't know why I decided, but you know, out of the two, this is upper front. Now I want to put on a pocket. So what I've given it a quick touch with the iron to get rid of the other marks that I had on here, but I have then put it in half again and put down my central mark so I know where I am. Now I want to put a pocket on here. I found a nice 8-inch zip, which I think will work well. The main zip is going to be white, but I think I'll use this zip for the pocket. This is optional, you don't have to do the pocket, but how can I say, I got things, you see what I mean? Even if I try and get them nice and neat, I got things like this, and a mouse, that I take with me everywhere. So this may fit into the depth of the bag once we finished. It may not, so I'm considering this, but any which way it'd be nice to have a pocket that would just have my mouse in it. So I am going to make a pocket, and also I am going to make it big enough so at the end of the day it will, and I try to scrunch this together as much as I can, and so I'm just going to take some, I think that's kind of central, so I'm just gonna draw myself some measurements at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how big the opening is, because obviously you can get it in. All right, so this is now what I need to do to figure out the size of extra material that we need to make this pocket and how we're going to do it. Right, bearing in everything in mind of what we just said regarding the mouse and the power pack that I want to get in this pocket, I've cut a piece of material which is 12.5 inches wide by 14 inches long. So a square of material. I folded it in half because this is what will form our pocket. We're going to go in through here, so what we will always see is the pretty interior. Okay, if you've got one-way fabric, bear this in mind. You might notice that I always tend to use uniform fabric, so it doesn't matter which way up it is for me, so that's less for me to think about. So I've drawn the line now. I've come down and I've drawn the line 7.5 inches down from the top. If I put T on there, you'll know that's the top. So 7.5 inches down, I've just drawn a line, okay, which is about 1/2 inch below the halfway mark, okay, on our pocket. I want to extend that now right across the fabric. Alright, more or less. Well, no, you'd have to go all the way because it doesn't have to be that big, to be honest, because we've only got an 8-inch zip. Now I want to make a 1/2 inch line down from that. So if I put my ruler on the line with a 1/2 inch difference, okay, yeah, I can then draw another line. Alright, so I've got a tram line now, 1/2 inch. Now naturally this is the zip I'm going to use. It's what they call an 8-inch zip. How you measure a zip is from where the stopper stops to where, let me turn my ruler around, where the stopper, where the zip ends there, to where the stopper is, and as you can see that's 8 inches. Alright, but I don't want it that big. I want it 7.5 because I want to cover up that stopper. I don't want that stopper showing. So my actual gap of zip I want to be 7.5 inches long. So I'm just going to put it's slightly over, but put a line that is giving me my centre. So 7.5 at 3 3/4, isn't it? Yeah, 3 3/4. So now I need to go from that centre line that I've just drawn and mark 3 3/4, and again 3 3/4, and just to double check myself, I'll measure that from one end to the other end. Well, it's not quite, excuse me, well, in between the two, so that, yeah, well, that's good enough, isn't it? I've made a load of marks now, but about there, roughly about there. So that's what I need to, is the gap that I want for the zip. Now I want to draw another line, which is 1/4 of an inch up from the bottom line. So halfway along that box, and about 1/4 of an inch in from either end. Okay, and then where it stops, I'm going to draw a V to the extending outside. All right, yeah, great. Now we're ready. The next thing we need to do is position this on our outside piece. Now I've got to decide where I want this zip to start, remembering that the pocket will be from the 1/2 inch line, yeah? So I need to centralise it, and I need to think about, well, where do I want the zip to start? I want to give myself plenty of room so that it's not impeding on our bottom stitch line. So I think that's about right. So in that case then, I will just make myself a little mark there and a little mark there to say that's where I want the centre fold to be, and then move it out so that it's single layer and line up my fold against those two marks that I made. Alright, so that can just stay up there. Now I want to make sure that I am as central as I can be. Alright, yeah, I'm happy with that. And then I'm going to get some pins, and I am just going to pin that to the outside, pin it down, put a pin up here for a moment. Might get it through the phone. Oh, I need a bigger pin. Onto this outside. Alright, so I don't want it to move. Now, what I want to do is put it under the needle and sew around the exterior of the box. So from this corner down, along the bottom line, across this side and along the top line. So I'm just doing that oblong, never mind the middle bits, I'm just sewing around the exterior of what I want for the zip. I'll show you. Okay, so just plop this under my machine. Oh, I'm running out of bottom thread, so I do not want it to run out while I'm doing this. Let me just get some more bottom line. Ooh, not in there. Maybe in this one. Bottom line. Yeah, that'll do. Right. So I'm just plopping in some more white thread. Okay, so and this time I want the thread length to be our normal 2.50. All right, normal. It might be 2.4 on yours, but it's 2.5 I use. So keeping everything else out of the way, we're literally going to start on that corner. Well, I'm going to start a little bit further down, and I'm going to sew along through the foam, through our pinned work. I'm going to sew along those lines. Keeping it nice and straight. So I'm accurately on the corner that I want to be, and then come down to accurately where I want to be on that line. I could do, if I do one stitch it'd be too much, so I'm going to come down to 160 because I want to do like half a stitch. There, better. Now I'm going to go back up to my 2.5. You can always alter the length of your stitch to be absolutely accurate. Okay, so back now along here. Yep, that's good enough for me. My other stitching out of the way, and up to that corner. Oh, I don't want to do half a stitch. And along, and I will just overstitch a few stitches of where I started. And stop my machine. All right, and cut my thread. So now if I show you the back of it, I have literally sewn that rectangle, which is the space that I want for my zip, which is 1/2 inch apart. All right, and that's what the front looks like. Let's go back to the desk. Okay, I just brought this back with our slot, our thing stitched. Now to get you in, you might want to use a stitch ripper and just make a hole through the foam and everything, just to get you started. So then you can take your material scissors and you're in. Right, I'm cutting through all layers now, but I'm cutting down to my V, and then I'm cutting the V to the stitching, but obviously not cutting the stitching, but as close as I can, because the closer you can get, the neater fold you will get when we push this through. Alright, and then I'm going back the other way now. And taking my, I gotta come, you might see it off my head because I gotta look very carefully at my stitches now, where my stitches are. So I want to go as close as I can without cutting my stitches. And exactly the same on that one. Right, okay, so now we've cut this hole. Now we can take out the pins. They're not required anymore. And now we can push it through from the front. Let's start with the big piece at the top. We can push it through from the front to the back. Alright? And from the front to the back. Okay. You see this happening? You can pull it through. It's not right yet, but we can pull it through. So this will be our zip opening. Now, and take it to the iron, roll the seam, okay, and iron it. And with the top one exactly the same, pull it so it's nice and firm, roll the seam and iron it. Okay, so we're left with that gap ready to put our zip into. Alright, so roll the seam and press it, roll the seam and press it. If you're getting marks on your corners, you know, like tension marks on your corners, you haven't, put it back through and go back and make sure you clipped right to the edge of your stitching. Alright, I'll come back to you as soon as I've done that. Alright, so just press that, lovely. So there's my hole for my zip. Here's my zip. Now I'm right-handed, so I want it to go this way. So I am going to place my zip underneath, and I want to place it so I'm covering up that metal bit, and I might open it tight. I might go a bit further that way actually, but I want that zip as much as I can to like central in that gap. Now here there are several ways in which you can do this. You can use some double-sided tape to hold it down. You can use pins to hold it down. I'm trying to think what's the best method to tell you. Oh, I still think that pinning it is the best method, to be honest with you. Yeah, because it's not a very wide zip. So I am going to take some fine point pins. I'm not going to put many in, just enough to say, well, I've held it. Alright. Which I'll take out as they go around. Now what we need to do now is to do a top stitch, so we want number 3 length on our machine, top stitch, okay, and we're going to top stitch, keeping that nice and central. We're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Okay, so there we are. I have sewed it, top stitched it all the way around. Yep, zip works. And the back of it looks like this, which is no problem at the moment. So what we need to do now is bring the top down, and any of these little creases that we had, we can pull out. Bring the top down to the bottom, okay, to actually make the pocket. Put in a couple of pins well inside to hold it together, top to bottom. Alright. Well away from the edge. And then I'm going to put it under the machine, folding back anything else. Obviously I don't need to stitch the top, and make sure the top is nice and firm. I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam down there, then folding this back, out of the way, everything out of the way, do 1/4 inch seam across there, and again folding that back, 1/4 inch seam along there, and then that's our pocket made, which when we open it up and it is all sewn will look like this. So that's the pocket. As you can see, I've sewn all the way around. Take the pins out, don't need them anymore. Alright, so that's the pocket done, which opens up from this, the outside, and then that's your pocket, alright, which hopefully all my stuff will fit in. Well, we'll see when we finish the bag. Now, want to put some decoration on my bag. Okay, so I want to centralise it and da-di-da-di-da. And I want to sew this decoration to the front of my bag. I talked about it ages ago, and this is what I want to do. Now, for me to be able to do that, I need to make sure that the pocket is up there, out of the way. And I need to, well, align it. I know more or less where my central line is here. Yeah, I want to align it, bring it down just a tad. I'm going to use a bit of 505 spray away from my project onto the back of my shape, so that's giving it a bit of adherence. And I'm going to say about there, so I've stuck that down now with 505. It's fairly good. And with my pocket out of the way, I am going to do just a quick stitch around to attach that to the front of my bag.